the other thing I think a lot of people forget to do in terms of the steps of the process, and this is more tactical, but developing a show flow is something that a lot of people don't do. Like we have a lot of people who migrate to us and I'm like, well, do you have a show flow? Can we see it? And they don't have one. And I think people forget the point of why that matters. And so a show flow for us is essentially it's your episode roadmap of like how each episode is consistently produced. And again, these things can evolve, they can change, etc. But then you're supposed to take that, you're supposed to. What we advise is that you then take that show flow and you leverage that into an episode level framework. And so your kind of like your beats of your show don't change, but the details change based on your guest or your topic. And because people don't do that, their show lacks intentionality and it lacks depth. And it starts to feel like a transaction and not a conversation, and no stories are actually told. And so I think that those are the things where it's like, it feels annoying to do when you look at the world and say, everyone has a podcast and it's so easy to start. And it's like, yes, yes, yes. But if you just slowed down and actually thought through a few of these things and then took it to life and practiced against those things, you would have a much better product that represents your brand, is more fun to create, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the things that like very specifically I would point out that people tend to not do and they definitely should do.
I can tell when a show doesn't have a show flow when
I
I
love
listen
that.
to it.
I love
And
that.
it gives me the hives because
Yes,
I'm just like, I
you're
don't,
annoyed.
I'm annoyed. And I think what's frustrating is even if you watch, I think this is why TV shows and movies are so great. There is, if you watch Grey's Anatomy, right, there are 21 seasons, there is a flow to every episode. You know what to expect. You know we're going to get some big drama at the mid-series finale. You know that there's going to be some sort of cliffhanger that's going to make us come back the next week. And podcasting should be the same thing because I want to know what to expect when I watch your show. I
Every
don't want to
single
be
time.
I don't want to be surprised every single time.
Yes. And like you also start to if you think about this from a brand experience perspective, again, going back to this idea of like podcasting can help create trust at scale, like that like part of that brand experience begins with paying attention to the experience you're creating for your audience. And so it's like taking the time to think it through. It doesn't have to be like super in depth or heady, but it has to be like you have to at least thought about it. You know what I mean? And I think that like that's a representation of your brand. So if you just get on the mic and ramble and have no flow for where you're taking people, both your guest or your audience, you're actually giving them a bad brand experience. And so it's like taking the time to do this is so worthwhile on so many layers.